Hello and welcome again to the program DPR, the Petroleum Industry Regulator. I'm always excited to be here to educate you on what the Department of Petroleum Resources does to get the best of the industry to your doorstep. Now today our focus is the laboratory. I believe you may be conversant with the medical laboratory where you go for your medical tests after a referral by a doctor to confirm what is really wrong with you. Now, to get the best, therefore, for you in terms of good fuel and engine oil for your car, truck, machines, or even airplane, your good environment devoid of contamination, there are laboratory tests these products and the environment stipulated by the DPR and the Standards Organization of Nigeria. Now, the Health, Safety and Environment Division of the department has, however, sounded an alarm on manipulations by some laboratories in the industry. But first, you get all of that after these tidbits. The downstream sector of Nigeria's oil and gas is set to witness a new lease of life, expected to benefit all stakeholders ultimately. The caliber of industry operators, experts and professionals who met recently in Lagos at the 13th Oil Trading and Logistics Expo 2019 validates this expectation. The Acting Director, Department of Petroleum Resources, DPR, the industry regulator, Mr. Ahmed Shakur, was represented by Mr. Wole Akinyosoye, Deputy Director, and the Lagos Zonal Coordinator of the department. In his address, Mr. Shakur asked, how do we do away with the story of being a major oil-producing country, yet a major importer of petroleum products? Following various addresses and goodwill messages, one of the conference speakers, the Managing Director of Petroleum and Pipelines Marketing Company, PPMC, Mr. Balawunti, who also represented the Group Managing Director, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, Mr. Melekiari, as well as the Chief Operating Officer, Downstream NNPC, Engineer Adetunji Adeyemi, took the floor. Mr. Wunti later declared the exhibition open and toured the exhibition stands. In separate interviews, Mr. Wunti and Mr. Akinyosoye had these to say.
You know, over the years, NNPC has always been an enabler. Because of the capital-intensive nature of some of this endeavor, NNPC has to spearhead and provide certain enablers for us to move on. As you are aware, we launched the Operation White, which is basically a data capture initiative.
And that is the objective of the whole exercise. Because if after all of these things you've put together, 1 liter is not 1 liter at the pump, then you have failed. Under dispensing and all these pricing things come to play when you are talking about scarcity.
As a leading business forum for unique insights on markets and emerging opportunities, as well as recognition of excellence in the downstream petroleum value chain, the Oil Trading and Logistics Downstream Week 2019 was also about taking Nigeria's downstream to the next level. The 2019 edition of the annual Media Practitioners Workshop organized by the Department of Petroleum Resources for Energy Correspondents has held in Lagos, specifically in the town of Ekpe. The theme of the workshop was enhancing a better understanding of DPR's regulatory role in the Nigerian oil and gas industry. In one of these sessions of the workshop, titled Media Etiquette and Protocol Skills for Efficient Information Sourcing from a 21st Century Regulatory Agency, Mrs. Ngozi Chantel Kolkrick, a business image coach and consultant, discussed in lucid details requisite manners journalists should exhibit in the course of carrying out their duties, home or abroad. Mr. Paul Osu is the Assistant Director of Public Affairs, DPR.
The essence of this exercise is to deepen the media's understanding of DPR's regulatory role in the oil and gas sector, and also to foster our relationship with the media.
The annual Media Practitioners Workshop is a regular performance enhancement forum organized by the DPR in support of energy editors and correspondents in the country. For any product to be confirmed good enough for human consumption, that product must undergo laboratory tests. Now, the same is applicable to all the processes of exploration, production, transportation, processing, and even storage of crude oil, gas, and a byproduct. Now, to do this, laboratories, laboratory attendants, microbiologists, and even chemists play a very big role in this sector. Now, this background report will explain why there is the need for laboratories in the oil and gas industry and why the DPR says, or rather, pays too much attention to the operations.
Petroleum is a naturally occurring yellowish-black liquid found in sedimentary geological formations beneath the Earth's surface. It consists of naturally occurring hydrocarbons of various molecular weights and may contain different types of organic compounds. The word petroleum covers both naturally occurring unprocessed crude oil and petroleum products that are made up of refined crude oil. Natural gas is part of that process. Petroleum and natural gas are mostly recovered by drilling wells into the earth. This is carried out after several studies of structural geology at the reservoir. The process entails thorough analysis of the sedimentary basin. It also entails reservoir characterization in terms of the porosity and permeability of geological reservoir structures. When this is done, the product of that drilling is called crude oil and sometimes natural gas. The crude oil or petroleum is refined and separated, mostly by distillation, into numerous consumer products, from premium motor spirit, better known as gasoline or petrol, domestic kerosene or AGO, aviation kerosene, to asphalt and chemical reagents used to make plastics, pesticides, and pharmaceuticals. Petroleum is used to manufacture a wide variety of products. It is estimated that about 1,200 products are produced from refined crude oil. Today, it is estimated that the world consumes about 95 million barrels of crude oil per day. The petroleum industry is a very complex business. It involves complex manipulations, right from exploration to production and refining to getting various byproducts. In order to protect human life, the environment, and ascertain the quality of the byproducts from the process of drilling, production, and processes of crude oil and gas, the services of laboratories are engaged.
There's a possibility if you have a crack or you have a river by the side, there's a possibility that it could pass in and affect your water, your groundwater. And you know, when it goes into your groundwater, it contains some amount of carcinogenous substances, which if you take in, might lead to other health damages like cancer, a lot of them.
A laboratory is a specialized science facility that provides controlled environment in which scientific or technological research, experiments, and measurements are performed. Laboratory services are provided in a variety of settings: physicians' offices, clinics, and hospitals. Others include regional and national referral centers and those for the oil and gas industry.
DPR is the policeman of the oil and gas industry. And they cannot be everywhere. That is why they accredit consultants who have been adjudged to be competent to be able to do the environmental evaluation and monitoring proficiently using best available facilities.
The business of laboratory services in the oil and gas industry is as old as the petroleum industry itself. It is used in exploration to ascertain how commercial or prolific a basin is. It is also used during production to know the quality of the crude and during the refining to know the quality of the products. Petroleum laboratories test crude oil, petroleum feedstocks and refined products. Petroleum lab testing services support petroleum refining, cargo inspection, upstream and related petroleum industry operations. They range from crude oil, fuels, gases, aromatics, petrochemicals to intermediate products, asphalt, petcoke, pipeline and many more. Petroleum Lab follows strictly acceptable industry testing standards. The Petroleum Laboratory must be competent in hydrocarbon-related quality control, troubleshooting, problem-solving, and research support. In Nigeria, the Department of Petroleum Resources has a branch within the Health, Safety and Environment Division. Its responsibility is to inspect, control and check these laboratories to ensure that their equipments are up to date in carrying out its duties of checking the processes of the oil and gas industry, which is very toxic.
We have designated or accredited laboratories that have the competence to monitor or to assess the quality of petroleum products when they come into the country, but they don't do that alone. There's always a DPR representative that accompanies them to the vessel to take the samples.
There are many laboratories in Nigeria licensed by the Department of Petroleum Resources to carry out the responsibilities of checking not only the quality of petroleum products but also the environment where they operate, like the exploration and production sites of the oil and gas industry, the processing sites, as well as the storage sites. Almost all the petroleum products, including LPG or cooking gas, are imported and they come by sea. Their first ports of call are the jetties and depots, and most of these facilities are in Lagos, Port Harcourt, Warri, and Calabar ports. As the vessels berth, the quality of the products are first checked before discharge. The Department of Petroleum Resources and laboratory officials are on ground not only to monitor the operations but also to enforce quality testing of the product.
Acidity generally is not good for products or for systems generally. It could cause corrosion and wear most systems, especially in the vehicle. When you have your vehicles and you have gasoline in there and the acidities are high, it will affect the internal walls of those tanks that are storing those products and could cause leakages.
The same is applicable to the upstream, where explorations and drilling are carried out. Every sample taken, including water, soil and air, are examined and tested by qualified laboratory or more than one laboratory. However, some of these laboratories are being accused of shortchanging the process and bringing up false reports. The Department of Petroleum Resources says it will stop at nothing to bring to an end all these malpractices.
We intend to ensure that going forward that companies do not, laboratories do not shortchange their clients by ensuring adequate supervision of their processes from the point of sample collection down to analysis, especially for those samples that really do have very low threshold period before the results are gotten. And up to the point of decision making, we are going to track all the activities going forward to be sure that the best international standards are followed up with in the industry.
This is a special announcement from the Department of Petroleum Resources. Do not keep petrol in jerrycans inside your rooms. Ensure that it is kept well outside the living environment and away from children. Avoid using your cell phone in petrol filling stations during refueling of your car. It can cause spark and ignite fire. Do not smoke or use naked light where petrol is being stored or sold. Turn off your car engine at filling station when buying fuel in your tank. Avoid filling your generating set with petrol when the engine is still running. Always ensure that the engine is switched off. Ensure that when pouring petrol into a container, it is done in a ventilated area and in safe manner. For more information, visit the nearest DPR office or our website www.dpr.gov.ng.
Thank you for that well-researched report on the Petroleum Industry Laboratory. I'll hand you over to my colleague, Antonia Amusu, for an interview with Dr. Musa Zagi. He is the head and Deputy Director, Health, Safety and Environment, Department of Petroleum Resources.
Hello and welcome to this segment of the program, where we have the Deputy Director of Health, Safety and Environment Division of the DPR in the person of Dr. Musa Zagi. Dr. Zagi, you are welcome to the program again.
Thank you for having me.
As the Deputy Director of Health, Safety and Environment Division, we want you to just in a very concise moment tell us exactly what is the main function of HSE.
Well, the main function of HSE, as the name implies, is to at least formulate the HSE policy for the oil and gas industry and also enforce it. That's the basic function of the HSE. So all the environmental issues, all the safety issues, all the health issues for the petroleum industry in Nigeria is our responsibility. We want to make sure that people are safe, environment is safe, that is not polluted, and the facilities are also safe.
So talk about safety. I'm sure testing of laboratories and petroleum lab for the petroleum industry falls under your purview.
Yes, sure.
Okay, so we would like to explore that the more. So when we talk of laboratory testing for petroleum in the petroleum industry, we want to find out how exactly has HSE been executing this responsibility.
By testing in the petroleum industry, we are referring to testing of petroleum products, testing of chemicals, and this we do every now and then. Every product that is imported in this country, every petroleum product has to be tested for quality first. Quality first before even quantity.
Well, you are talking about testing of these chemicals and what have you. The laboratories that carry out the tests, how adequate are they in the country, and where do we find majority of them situated?
Yeah, that's one of the Herculean tasks we have, because the qualities in the services provided by these laboratories are not yet where we want it to be. So we instituted a lot of programs, beginning with the in-house workshop, also conducting of biennial seminars, workshops for these laboratories, and annual accreditation by us to make sure that we bring them up, we step up the qualities of these laboratories.
What would you say is responsible for two results on one product coming out? Is it that those labs don't have adequate facilities or their personnel?
I think it has to do with both. But we try to address the issue of personnel and issue of facilities through the annual accreditation we do for these laboratories. Depending on which area of testing you are offering your services, there is minimum requirements set out by the Department of Petroleum Resources, minimum requirement in terms of facilities, and minimum requirement in terms of training of those staff. Most of the problem we have had in the past is that these equipments are highly calibrated.
If you are aware of this, what is DPR doing to whip these laboratories?
Yeah, we really are doing so much. We have started sanctioning them. We have started blacklisting them. We try to make sure that also the gaps in knowledge are closed. That's why we conduct these workshops, biennial workshops to all laboratory managers. We give them a lot of training. We make sure that the equipments are calibrated.
Okay, if you say you have seen a lot of improvement, to what extent would you say are companies still taking their products outside for testing, or the rate at which they do that has reduced significantly, especially those in the downstream?
One thing that I have not told you about, the problem we have with the results, is the benchmark, because the operators don't pay much premium. The kind of money they pay to carry out this analysis, according to the laboratory managers, is not enough for them to do the needful, to do the right analysis. That's why they do a lot of extrapolation also.
So in what way is DPR helping these laboratories to really be up to par with their counterparts in other climes? How are you empowering them?
Well, as if you are in the last workshop, you see that we discuss about laboratories coming together between themselves to have a merger so that at least they will increase their financial base. We also talk of having maybe a kind of a national union or whatever you call it, a forum for laboratory managers so that they can have a standardized and unified approach in bidding for these jobs.
Did you set a time frame with which some of these things are to take place, and how enthusiastic are the operators in implementing some of these ideas?
We sure did. We said before the next conference they should come out with the...
When is the next conference?
The next conference. We do this conference every other year.
Okay.
So committees have been set. Internally, we have set committees in the in-house here that will work out the modalities. We also want to encourage these laboratory practitioners as a department to be able to get some soft loans from the Bank of Industry, from the Nigerian Content, NCDB. So with all this, I'm sure they will come off to the quality we want them to be.
So in this last conference you had mentioned, you did accuse some of these operators of shortchanging their clients in terms of the output of what they are doing.
Well, if you talk of the operators, what we say about them is that they should not hinge payment of the laboratory services offered to them by the laboratory managers on the approval of their report by the DPR. Mostly, we require all the operators to carry out environmental monitoring of their discharges, the effluent discharges, the air quality. Those reports are normally supposed to be submitted to DPR so that wherever there is a kind of offset, we'll be able to address the offset.
Can you tell us exactly what will be the implication of these labs not doing their job as they should on the petroleum industry?
Basically, you know, we use the results of the laboratory managers to approve and therefore to determine the policy direction. So if the results is bad, it will lead to a wrong policy, and inadvertently it will affect the industry, it will affect the economy.
All the lifespan of a lab, like before the president, how often do you renew their license?
License is renewed annually, and every year our staff go to inspect the facilities, inspect the environment, also the personnel. These are the three major things which we check when we are accrediting laboratories. We check the personnel, we check the environment, and we check the equipment.
On that positive note, I want to thank you very much, Dr. Musa Zagi, Deputy Director, Health, Safety and Environment Division of the DPR. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so very much.
Many thanks, Antonia. I hope you have been well informed and educated on the challenges in the laboratory subsector of the oil and gas industry, as well as the sharp practices the department has vowed to address. Join me next week for another topic on what the Department of Petroleum Resources does to bring the best of petroleum industry products to your doorsteps. Curtains drawn, and it's goodbye.